Right, so if you can't tell, I'm just back from America. And I was just so inspired while I was there. In particular, I was inspired by the live action remake of Aladdin. It was amazing. Like, genuinely, I actually enjoyed it. Like, I don't know if Disney has just hypnotized me or if it was genuinely good, but I left the cinema with a smile. And normally, with Disney live actions, I leave with a very neutral expression of just complete nothingness. So my first thing that I loved about live action Aladdin is Jasmine and Aladdin have more well-rounded personalities. Cartoon Jasmine is fine, but she's very one note. We don't really know anything about what she doesn't like, other than arranged marriages. We don't know a lot about what she does like. What does she do for fun? I mean, I guess she's a tiger. But live action Jasmine, that is a girl with some goals. Her first goal is to go out and see Agrabah. Her second goal is to become the Sultan. Her third goal is to become Emperor of the Universe. She's amazing, okay? And like Aladdin's the same. We find out more about their lives than any of the Aladdin trilogy. Before I made this video, I thought it would be fair to rewatch the film again and make sure it was still good. And it was. One of the opening scenes of the movie is Jasmine in the marketplace or whatever, and she's a scarf over her head. And she's just wandering around. And she sees these two emotionless children covered in dirt who are just intensely staring at some bread, which is like right here. And they're just looking at it. Very unblinkingly and very motionlessly. Just kind of staring at it. As if they are ghosts that were murdered by the bread. It's not as if they look hungry. Like, they're not intensely looking at it out of hunger. They're just intensely glaring at it. As if the bread is all that stands between them and the mortal world. But Jasmine doesn't care. She kind of just swans over. She touches them as if to make sure they're corporeal. And then takes some bread and just hands it to them. And then the children run off. Again, expressionless. Oh, and in the infamous scene, the shopkeeper grabs Jasmine and goes to like chop off her hand. But he doesn't have a butcher knife in this because I guess Disney thought it would be a bit too dark. He just kind of grabs her hand. And Aladdin comes over with this big grin on his face. It's weird because all throughout the scene, it's like Aladdin hadn't quite figured out how to be Aladdin. Because he goes for this expression where he looks like this mischievous, chilled out, charismatic guy, and this straight up serial killer. He looks at Jasmine and sometimes it's sweet, it's like a really sweet, cute smile. And then other times he looks like he's about to like chop her up in an alleyway. Side note, I am actually in love with Aladdin's face. And I don't mean that in a he's so pretty kind of way. Like he is. But we've acknowledged that already. I mean it in like when he smiles with his whole face. His whole face is just a giant smile. You know? And just like the cartoon, like when the cartoon smiles, it's like his whole face just lights up. And it's great. It's like a perfect casting. Like cartoon Aladdin and real life Aladdin smile the same way. It's great. I love it. Then it's my favourite song of the movie. They're singing One Jump. And Aladdin's going for it. He's parkouring everywhere. It's really, really cool. Then the guards, there's 3 guards that are chasing them. And they kind of storm in. Like they rhythmically march towards Aladdin while rhythmically chanting in unison as if they're rappers about to break down the latest track. So Aladdin's singing like, one jump ahead of the bum bum, and then the 3 guards come in, and this is legit how they walk. Okay. Street rat call. It's insane and magical and everything I wanted this song to be. Okay, and all this time Jasmine is blurred in the background because in the cartoon she wasn't there for this scene, and they blur her because it's awkward having everyone else kind of singing and dancing and Jasmine just kind of staring. But then Aladdin and Jasmine get on this cart thing and Aladdin's going for it, the camera's on him and Jasmine, and he is singing his little street rat heart out. But the problem with this is they frame it like this. So Aladdin's here and he's belting, and Jasmine's here, and she doesn't know what to do. And it's not her fault. Like, the acting in this film is good. It's just awkward because she's not given anything to do. So to fix this problem, we actually have to make the whole of Aladdin a rom-com. Okay? Instead of Jasmine being Jasmine, she's going to be a rom-com lead. So for that, we need her to be clumsy, but not clumsy in a way where she's awkward, just in a clumsy way so she's quirky. So she and Aladdin both get in the cart, and they're both standing, and Aladdin's belting out, and Jasmine kind of looks at him, but then because she's clumsy, she like falls over and her legs are in the air, and her legs are kind of kicking in the air while he sings. Anyway, I think that would just fix that little moment. Oh my god. But the song isn't over yet. No, the song is barely halfway through, and there is so much in it that I just adore. So Jasmine and Aladdin are running up this narrow staircase. The guards are chasing them. The staircase is like single file, right? There are 3 guards chasing them, and they're about to reach Aladdin and Jasmine when this woman who's carrying a basket of fish steps in the middle of them and like puts her hand out to stop the guards, and then she sings the line, "I think he's rather tasty." So in the cartoon, this line was sung by a woman who kind of just grabbed Aladdin and sang it to him while he was clearly uncomfortable. But when this live action woman sings a line, what she is saying is, "Don't arrest this handsome man because he is handsome." This is made funnier by the only context she has of this fight being 3 men with swords drawn chasing this man and a monkey down the streets. And she thinks, nah, this man doesn't deserve it. I don't care what he's done. I will save him because he is rather tasty. She steps in front of them, possibly sacrificing her life for him. The guards were chasing them with swords for stealing 2 loaves of bread. So if you block off the guards while they're chasing other criminals with swords, I guess you're gonna get murdered. Like, that can be the only next step, right? Like, I don't think that woman survived, but she died valiantly. She died standing up for what she believed in. Criminals that are attractive. Alternately, here's my Aladdin theory, okay? My Aladdin cinematic universe theory is that everybody just knows Aladdin. Hear me out. So, wherever Aladdin goes, the person he's talking to knows him. He is talking to a woman at the start of the movie and she calls him by his name. That's fine. It's a person, right? Then he goes to try and sell something to Zainab from EastEnders and she calls him Aladdin. She knows him. Then the bread man, the man that was like after them, knew his name. Then Aladdin falls in to a room filled with women who are like summoning demons. But these women all know him. And not only do they know his name, they know his backstory. Like the teacher of the demon summoning group or whatever that was even says that he doesn't have parents. And she sings about how he doesn't have parents. So they know him. They know his backstory. That he's homeless, that he's parentless. This whole town or city knows Aladdin. So my theory is that there's only 200 people living in Agrabah. And Aladdin is a local kid who ever since he was a teenager has been sneaking out late and smoking in the Asda car park. That's Aladdin. That is him. Anyway, the song's still going on and so is this video. I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm spending so long on this song. Wait, I do know. It's because it's amazing. So they get to the top of this building, this like 4-story building, and Aladdin's like, let's do, the song's called One Jump, so we better do some more jumps. And he starts running and jumps off the building onto another building. Oh, but before he does that, he shoves some guards off the scaffolding and they plummet to their deaths. So then Jasmine's kind of afraid because now they're not just in trouble for the bread stealing. They're in trouble for like murder, I guess. But Jasmine is scared. So she's there and she's being afraid. But Aladdin's like, just do it. And she does. And it's great. Yay. Then we come to my favourite Jafar line. That's right, I have a favourite Jafar line and you're a fake fan if you don't. So They're in this creepy dungeon. You can hear the faint sound of someone being tortured. There's screams, the sound of chains rattling. It's very ominous. And you walk in, you're following Jafar, and you see these like prisoners lined up. And you can tell by their clothes, they're all poor people. So Jafar is looking for the diamond in the rough. And these men are all lined up. And he walks up to one of them and gives him a big old sniff and says, "This isn't a diamond in the rough." I love the implication here that the diamond of the rough has a distinct smell. Like when you smell Aladdin, it's like musk and charisma and a tiny bit of apricot. And that is what Jafar is looking for. Like Jafar is looking for two things. He wants to get the lamp, but he also wants to find what kind of perfume Aladdin uses. He wants Aladdin's signature scent. They also make it so that Aladdin and Jasmine are both smarter than they were in the cartoon. Like, Aladdin looks at Jasmine and is like, what is up with you? There is something weird. Because your clothes are all fancy and you look like a rich person. But he puts it down to her being handmaiden to Princess Jasmine. So Jasmine lies and is like, yeah, oh you're right, you figured it out, well done. And then she immediately finds this weird lute guitar thing. It's like huge and very clunky, but she begins to play it. And immediately Aladdin's like, whoa, my mom played that song all the time. And Jasmine's like, whoa, mine too. And for a second, because I'm so used to guessing a movie's plot twists, I started to think, wow, do they have the same mom? But then I realised that would make the whole movie very creepy and weird. So I threw that idea out the window and decided it's just a very common mum song. Like it's just Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, but on a lute. There's also a bit of backstory for Jasmine, which I love, but I hate it at the same time because it leaves a lot of questions. So let me explain. Jasmine isn't allowed out the castle because when her mum left the palace one day, she was killed. Yeah, straight up murdered. Jasmine explains that her father is afraid the same will happen to her. And Aladdin has this line where he's like, yeah, the whole city has been afraid since then. Which is terrifying because it implies that Jasmine's mother's killer is still out there. Like whoever killed Jasmine's mom is still walking the streets of Agrabah, stalking the palace, trying to wait until Jasmine leaves to make his move. Or her move. Girls can be killers too. And this isn't brought up again, ever. Like they don't even have a throwaway line where Iago's like, remember when I killed your mom, Jasmine? And I really think they should. But it means they've set up a great sequel for Aladdin 2. Because Aladdin 2 in the cartoon wasn't that great. Like we have a whole court case, crime drama kind of movie. You know, Aladdin's mom is the victim. They have some new DNA evidence, they have something to work with, something new. And meanwhile, the two lead detectives, Aladdin and Jasmine, are falling in love. But then Jasmine gets kidnapped and Aladdin has to save her. And they both get locked in a freezer at some point. And they have to hug to keep warm. And when they come out, their love is rekindled. I don't know, I'm just spouting. And the whole movie will involve like a 45-minute court case. Then at the end, we'll find out that Jafar was Jasmine's mom all along. Something else I loved. So in the cartoon, when Aladdin lies to Jasmine about being Prince Ali, it's never really explained. It's just a dumb decision he makes because he's dumb. But in this, it's because Jasmine has this bracelet that was her mother's bracelet, presumably that was picked off her dead, murdered corpse. But Jasmine has it now. And when she leaves, she realizes she doesn't have it and she blames Aladdin because she thinks Aladdin's stolen it. But it wasn't Aladdin, it was the monkey. Oh no. So Aladdin's kind of embarrassed and he feels bad. So it kind of makes a bit more sense why he would lie about who he is, because he doesn't think Jasmine would trust him that much. But before any of the Prince Ali stuff, what he decides to sneak into the palace to see Jasmine. And it's great. Jafar notices because he's in this tower and he looks out the window and Aladdin's just there like parkouring over like the roofs and stuff. And then there's this scene where this prince is coming to see Jasmine, and there's that guy that's really rude and he's on a horse. And the two lifeless demon ghost children are in the crowd, just staring blankly again, because it's all they do. And the horse suddenly gets spooked, probably because of the demon ghost children that are staring right at it. But the horse freaks out, and Aladdin steps in front of it to protect the ghost children. And the next bit is entirely, completely awkward. Because in the cartoon, I think this conversation is like 2 minutes long. Like, they chat, they have a bit of back and forth, you know, like Aladdin and the evil guy. But in the live action, Aladdin says one thing to him, and then he just monologues the rest of his lines. Like, Aladdin doesn't really say anything else. And it's weird because they're so obviously meant to be in response to what Aladdin is saying, and he just says them all at once, with really weird pauses. You are a street rat. Your family will never love you. Fleas will not mourn your funeral. And then he goes away, and you think the ass line's gonna come. Because my most iconic memory of watching Aladdin as a kid was when Aladdin said, "Oh wow, that horse has 2 rear ends." And I asked my cousin what that meant, and my cousin said it means the horse has 2 asses. He's calling the guy on the horse an ass. And then I realised what ass meant. And it was a learning moment that I will never ever forget. And they took away my childhood by not putting it in the movie. Cartoon, the ass horse guy and the prince are the same person, but in the live action the ass horse is just an ass on a horse and the prince is someone different. And he goes to meet with Jasmine and he sees the tiger and is like, "Wow, what a nice cat," and goes to give it a toy, and then the camera cuts to black, there's a roar and a scream, and then we're in a new scene and the prince guy is absent. And I can only assume the implication here is that he was eaten or mauled to death by a tiger. Oh, also, as I said before, Jasmine's goal in this film is to be Sultan. Her father doesn't want it because he's kind of sexist and into tradition because he's like 80. Like, I don't know what age Jasmine's mother was, but Jasmine's like in her 20s, which means that he was like 60 when he had her. So I assume the mum was... Is Jasmine's father a bit of a creep? Did he kill his wife? Jafar doesn't want Jasmine to be Sultan either, but it's not because Jafar is sexist, it's because Jafar wants to be Sultan. Jafar is actually very feminist. He's for equal rights. He follows Hillary Clinton on Twitter. And then we meet my favourite character in the film. She's Jasmine's handmaiden. Her name, I don't think was mentioned in the film because I watched the whole thing and I ended up having to Google her name. It's Dahlia, by the way, and she's incredible. She is so funny, and her and Jasmine have such a cool like bond going on. Like, female friendship is so important to me, and Dahlia and Jasmine's friendship is just amazing. Then we get to the most controversial part of the movie, the horrifying Will Smith's genie. I don't know if it's the CGI or the amount of pure muscle mass he seems to have, but for a few seconds it seems like he has come alive specifically to murder Aladdin. As a side note, do you think anyone's brave enough to ask Will Smith how he got so buff for the role? There's also a scene, and this was in the trailer, where the genie's talking about how ambiguous wishes can be. And if Aladdin said, "Make me a prince," the genie can just make a prince. Like, just make a prince appear. He can make Prince, the musician, appear. But I have a problem with this. And the problem is, how conscious is he? Like, is this a prince that has been lifted from another country and put there? Or does the genie literally possess the ability to create life? What? And then what happens when he makes the prince disappear? Does the prince die? Was the prince alive for a few seconds with a whole backstory? A whole fake mother and fake father? A whole fake kingdom to run? Was he given the gift of a few seconds of life only for it to be stripped away by a blue man with CGI abs? For the Prince Ali sequence, there's a similar thing, because the genie creates a literal entourage of people this whole community of people have been created by the genie, for this weird dance number. They know one thing. They were born in this world knowing one thing, and that was a killer dance number. And believe me, it's amazing. I definitely recommend you look this scene up on YouTube. It's fantastic. But all these people were created from magic. And afterwards, where do they go? Like, after the song ends, will they have to forge an identity for themselves? Get a job, find a house, knowing nothing, not even their own name, only knowing how to dance to a song and to sing? Will they have to get a job? Will they have to learn how to talk? How to act with other humans? How to ingrain themselves in society? Also, they have this joke where the genie gives Aladdin a hat and he says, "Oh, it's kind of a big hat." And the genie says, "That's not a big hat." Then during Prince Ali, the genie is wearing like this massive hat. It's great. By the way, my favourite character, Dahlia, is making the best facial expressions throughout the whole Prince Ali sequence. Like, I want to see a cut of this film where it's just her face. Whatever she's doing in the background, I want to see it. Her reactions are amazing. She is like a real person. I mean, she is, probably. She wasn't created by a genie, so we know that. But she's amazing, and I love her so much. And my second favourite part of Prince Ali, everyone starts holding the final note. They're holding this really long, high note, which is impressive in itself. But Will Smith is shouting at the Sultan that they're not going to stop until the Sultan joins in. And I thought it was perfect and very goofy. And that's actually where Will Smith's genie kind of comes to light. Like, when he's not doing lines that are specifically written for Robin Williams, he's amazing. Like, he's a great genie. I wish they just let Will Smith riff a bit and be Will Smith a bit more, because that part rocked. Then afterwards, they have this choreographed dance sequence, and it's this real proper formal dance and everyone's going for it. But the genie's controlling him, and soon the dance turns from this formal thing into a dance circle you might find at 4 AM in a nightclub, with Aladdin breakdancing on the ground, and it's wonderful. But Jasmine is not into it, because dance circles are awkward and I really wish people wouldn't make me dance in the middle of them. Okay, so real talk, my camera ran out of battery and it's now a new day, and this shirt is disgusting. As you know from the cartoon, Aladdin lies to Jasmine a lot. Like, his whole character is basically a manipulative liar. And Jasmine believes him in the cartoon because her whole character is just woman who doesn't like arranged marriage. But in this film, both of them have more, like a little bit more depth anyway. So Aladdin tells her this lie that he was only pretending to be poor because it's fun. Obviously this is a ridiculous lie, because in the sequence with One Jump, as I mentioned before, literally everyone knows him personally. And not only does he know the city really well, but he knows everyone. And he also has a full-on house with a lot of objects, including a guitar which belonged to his mother. Really dumb lie with a lot of holes in it. But live action Jasmine knows this. So live action Jasmine has a conversation with her handmaiden, aka the best character, and it's heavily implied that Jasmine knows Aladdin's talking rubbish, that he is really poor, but she just wants to believe him so that they can eventually get married, because she can't be in a relationship with someone who isn't a prince. It also gave Jasmine a bit of the upper hand because she was able to work out that he was lying, whereas in the cartoon she just kind of goes along with what he says for the most part, and it becomes a future point of contention in Aladdin too. But potentially the weirdest part in this movie was when Jafar had Aladdin tied to a chair and all his guards were standing watching him, and the chair was over this balcony, like the scene in Mamma Mia 2 with Colin Firth. And then Jafar pushes Aladdin and he goes over and his hands are behind his back and he's screaming, and then for no reason at all it goes in slow motion and you just hear this slow motion scream as he slowly tumbles back. And I know this was probably made specifically with the trailer in mind to make Aladdin look even cooler. Like, look at this jump, look at this stunt, it's insane, how will he get out of this? but it just, in the movie, just made the scene kind of weirdly whimsical. Like, I think I laughed a little when it went in slow motion because it was so disconcerting, and never had this film used slow motion up until this point when he was backflipping into the ocean. Did that rhyme? There's also this really cool Jeremy Kyle Dr. Phil reveal where Jasmine is waiting in a room and Jafar and the Sultan come in and say, oh yeah, Aladdin is a crook and he ran away from you because he hates you. And Jasmine's like, really? Are you sure? And Jafar is like, yeah, I'm sure. He ran off cursing your name and like spitting on portraits of your face. And she's like, really? Because he's right here. And then Aladdin steps out from behind a curtain and presumably the audience like claps and cheers and gasps really loudly. It's amazing, it's so dramatic, and it is great because Aladdin and Jasmine are kind of working together as opposed to the cartoon where I can't really remember what happens. Like, Disney couples that defeat antagonists together are the Disney couples that stay together, am I right? And because Jafar in this movie is a lot of things. Then Jafar takes out his staff and he points it at the Sultan and tries to hypnotise him in front of a room filled with people. Like, there are so many people there. Jasmine's there, Aladdin's there, the monkey's there, the handmaiden's probably there. Like, all the dance extras are in the background somewhere because they really don't know what to do with their existence. And obviously everyone sees this happen and they realise that Jafar isn't just a bad dude, but he's like a really bad dude and has been manipulating the Sultan for potentially years. Because everyone in this film is actually smart except for Jafar, who does the most dumb things in this version, Aladdin sees this happening along with the rest of the room and grabs the staff and breaks it in half. And I thought it was great because it was like a little friendly twist, a little new scene, you know, where you see the strength of both Aladdin and Jasmine working together, and you also see the Sultan be insulted. I also love how the Sultan keeps saying that Jafar is his most trusted advisor. Like, several times throughout the film, the Sultan refers to Jafar as the most trusted advisor, the biggest best friend out there. The person he trusts most in the world is Jafar, which concerns me because the implication that Jafar is the most trusted advisor means there's multiple other advisors. And Jafar, who from the start looks shady, like, even the way he talks is kind of creepy. Like, you can tell he definitely spent a good portion of his childhood killing cats. But for some reason he's the most trusted of all the other advisors. So I can only assume that all the other advisors on multiple occasions have like robbed the Sultan in some way, have like stolen stuff from him, have like openly made fun of him on Facebook. And Jafar is the only one who just hasn't like stolen from him or like gossiped about him, and for that reason Jafar is the most trusted. Alternatively, there was a time where Jasmine's mother was considering whether or not to leave the palace that day, and Jafar was like, no, there's a serial killer in the loose, don't leave the palace. And every other advisor told her to go, and then she did go and she was killed. And since then the Sultan just doesn't trust the other advisors. Also, no one in this entire film has seen a cat. The first time I heard the tiger, the literal 6-foot tiger Jasmine has, called a cat, it was the Goofy Prince guy. And I thought, wow, it's because he's a Goofy Prince guy, he doesn't know what animals are. But no, Jafar calls him a cat, the Sultan calls him a cat, Aladdin calls him a cat. Everyone thinks this tiger is a cat. Which has drawn me to two conclusions. One, everyone has only heard a rough description of what a cat is. That it has 4 legs and that it's furry and that it can live in people's houses. And they've also heard a rough description of a tiger. That it's like a cat except it eats people, it eats meat, and it's a vicious creature that will probably kill you if you leave it in a room with you. And their first time seeing a cat or a tiger is when they see Raja. And they think, wow, well, it's living in a house and it licks people for affection and it hasn't tried to eat anyone. So it must be a cat and not a tiger, right? And they draw this conclusion, which can only lead me to believe that Jasmine also isn't aware that it's a tiger. Because I don't think anyone calls it a tiger in the entire movie. Like, Jasmine probably bought this thinking this is what a cat is. She probably doesn't even know it's a tiger. Which leads me to conclusion number 2. It's either that or cats are tigers in this movie. Like, every time a person has a cat, it's a tiger. Also, the big twist where Jafar has the lamp and stuff, it switches between a scene of Jafar holding the lamp and Aladdin looking at this bag and looking at the camera and just looking very shocked. My only complaint in the Jafar turns evil scene is when the genie makes Jafar a sultan, he takes the hat off the sultan and he puts it on Jafar, and immediately everyone looks at Jafar with his new sultan hat and says, "You're the sultan, you're my boss now." And there's this guard who immediately pledges allegiance to him, and it causes all the other guards to immediately pledge allegiance to Jafar as a new sultan, which is fine. He is wearing a sultan hat, and legally you can only wear that if you're the sultan, so we must obey the man of the hat, right? But then 2 seconds later, Jasmine's singing the reprise of Speechless, which is much better than the original, and as she's singing, everyone she sings at is crumbling to dust. It's great, and she can really belt, so it's very nice. And after she's finished singing, she decides she won't go speechless, and she turns to the guard captain and is like, "I am your boss, not Jafar. Believe in me. Just because my father's not wearing the sultan hat doesn't mean he's not the sultan anymore." And the captain of the guard is like, "Wait, she's right. Everyone obey the old sultan without the hat." And then they do. And then Jafar gets annoyed and curses them all to hell or something. I'm kind of confused where he puts them because they don't appear for the rest of the movie. Okay, the weirdest plot in this movie is the plot where Jafar wants to marry Jasmine. And in the cartoon, it's because Jafar wants to be sultan. But now Jafar is sultan. So he decides to marry Jasmine to punish the real sultan, because marrying him is like torture, or like marriage is like torture, or like Jasmine has better prospects out there. I'm kind of confused why this is a punishment to the sultan specifically. Also, what I liked about it though is it's a lot less creepy and sexual than it is in the cartoon. So I was glad that Jafar and Jasmine has zero chemistry whatsoever, and they both seemed very unhappy about the marriage that was currently happening, as if Jafar had said it as a threat, like, "I'm gonna marry your daughter," and then the sultan didn't back down, and now Jafar has to go through with it, but he doesn't really want to, and it's just a whole big thing. They're about to get married and say their vows and have the most awkward kiss in the history of the universe, but Jasmine grabs the lamp from Jafar's belt. I don't know why he had it in his belt and not in a locked safe somewhere, but it was on his belt, and Jasmine grabbed it, and instead of immediately making a wish, she like jumped off a building like she'd done earlier in the film, and Aladdin was there with the magic carpet, and they flew away. Then Jafar turned Iago the parrot into a giant bird demon. Yeah, the giant bird demon goes on a rampage, chasing Aladdin on a magic carpet through the streets, which is fine. I don't have an issue with this. But imagine being just a villager. Like, you are just standing in the village, just walking around, having a great day. You know, it's Sunday morning, people are buying all your bread, you've only been stolen from like 3 times. It's great, you know? And then suddenly there's a giant bird attacking you. And it's not as if they have any context for any of this. All the action has been happening in the palace. From the villagers' point of view, the movie has went like this. Nothing really happened. A second day of nothing really happening. Oh no, there's a giant bird destroying the town. Jasmine's a sultan now, And is marrying that kid who used to run around egging houses on Halloween. And the villagers also find that like a bunch of people died. Like there's a death count in this body. I wasn't counting specifically, and I don't want to rewatch it for a third time because I've seen it twice in a month and that's just too much for me. But there is a death toll and it's surprisingly large. Oh, I also want to say they try and do this feminist thing and I'm still on the fence of whether it is or not, because Jasmine doesn't immediately marry Aladdin. She becomes Sultan first. And she doesn't reject Aladdin. Aladdin just kind of takes himself out of the equation. He's like, bye, I've lied to you too much, you probably don't want to see me. I've made some mistakes, I'm gonna leave. And then Jasmine is given the Sultan ring that makes her Sultan, which I didn't really understand because it was a hat before, but it's a symbol, so I guess she's Sultan now. And then she runs out the palace and is like, Aladdin, wait, marry me. And presumably at this point Aladdin can't say no because she's literally the Sultan, which gives her agency, like a lot of agency, which I enjoyed. But it also seemed like one of those Jane Eyre things. I'm still unsure about the ending. I think it's great Jasmine has more agency and that she's made Sultan and that was her goal. But there's never like really a promise that Aladdin isn't gonna lie about things. And I think that's a step in the right direction. I don't know if it's completely perfect, but it worked enough for a Disney film, I think. At the end they have this dance party and it's exactly like a pantomime. Like they're all kind of clapping and, you know, getting down together. The only difference between that and a real pantomime is there's no like man in his 50s dressed as a woman. And also John Barrowman is noticeably absent. Oh, and the Handmaiden and the Genie get together. So another thing that I thought really worked with this live action was the acting. Characters were expressing themselves so well through like subtle motions, from like people tearing up to like little subtle smiles at things. Like I thought it was great. Like one of the benefits for doing live action is being able to convey more emotion like throughout scenes from all different characters, because it's a lot more trouble to animate crowd scenes where every single crowd member is reacting in their own unique way. Like that's what live action should be. It shouldn't be emotionless CGI lions staring into the camera and telling you that they're proud of their CGI lion son, while the CGI lion son sits there doing nothing with his face because he's a CGI lion. He does not emote. Oh, is this still going?